He already has one. They should just pay him out, shouldn't they?
I was actually going to alternate this and go to Dave first, but actually, Andrew, it feels only right I should go to you for this one.
That might be it for him now, and he might not live up to the standard we've seen previously.
Hello and welcome to this very special episode of GG, as this is our National Hunt Season preview show for the 2025-26 campaign. My name is Kate Tracey. Alongside me in person, my usual dynamic duo of Dave Young and Andrew Mount. Great to see the pair of you two. We've got a new layout as well, back in the studio in person. This is all very cool and casual, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, nice and comfy, like home from home, isn't it? The sofas.
Yeah.
It's good to be talking about the jump season as well. That's another home from home, so I'm looking forward to this.
That is your home from home and then some. And have you been able to flip your brain from flat to jumps yet?
Yeah, just about. So the only thing missing from this set is your cat, Kate.
Kiwi featuring.
Disappointed there's no kiwi.
No, I'm very pleased there's no kiwi, because the lovely velvet material that we've got on these seats definitely wouldn't stand a chance against her tiny little claws. So yeah, kiwi safely at home. We'll no doubt be watching. So we'll have to fill her in on that. Now, this is going to be a slightly different format. First and foremost, Dave and Andrew are going to give you their 5 horses to follow for the season. That's pretty standard. However, we're also going to go into some unique questions on Gold Cup predictions, Grand National predictions, young jockey to follow, trainer's title, and plenty more, as well as your own questions towards the end of the show. So, lads, we better get into it, shall we? Who should we kick off with? Andrew, do you want to go first? First and foremost, your horse to follow, numero uno.
Sure thing. First one, Derry Hassan Paddy for Lucinda Russell. And this one, of course, signed off last season with a fine third in the Albert Bartlett at the Cheltenham Festival. After which Lucinda Russell got quite emotional talking about him, saying that they probably shouldn't have gone over hurdles because he's an embryo chaser. And it was one of those, the usual, anything he did over hurdles was a bonus. He was a point-to-point winner. He won an air bumper on his rules debut, winning very comfortably as a short price favourite. Followed up under a penalty at Windsor, showing a good attitude to win that day. And that Albert Bartlett third was fantastic. Not just because he was British trained in a race that's always dominated by the Irish, but the fact that he was up with the pace when the winner and second came from well in the rear. And he did clear best of those to race anywhere near the front end. That was a huge effort. And he's going to make some chaser. Now, he's due to run over fences for the first time at Newcastle, I think, at the end of October, shortly before this video goes out. So let's hope he wins comprehensively there, probably at prohibitive odds, and we'll see him have a successful season. Yeah,
we know Lucinda Russell's record in the Albert Bartlett, and she potentially has had another smart one in the race this time around. That proved to be the case, but fascinating to see what he's going to do over fences. Lovely quote as well over your left shoulder with the delighted, everything that he said, the fact that Lucinda gets so emotional about him, and that he is just a great, honest horse. So good way to kick off. Dave, your own first horse.
Yeah, so my first horse to follow is Lucky Place. Another good, honest horse. Nicky Henderson's put a recent stable tour out where he's talking about this horse. He's always very complimentary about how straightforward he is and how he just gets things done. He's just a lovely, nice horse. We saw him last season hurdling, didn't we? He picked up 2 Grade 2s over the middle distance, ended up in the Stayers hurdle. I gave him a chance in that race and he just underwhelmed, I guess is the best way to put it. He either didn't stay or he's just not that good a horse. But I don't think it's the latter. I don't think it's that he's not that good a horse. I just think that maybe the plan to go chasing last season was aborted. This season going chasing will actually bring the best out of him. He finished the season on 153, I think it was, which is probably a hefty enough starting mark, but I think it means that they're going to have to throw him into decent company over fences. He might just be a horse, for all that he started last season well, that he might have a bit of a slower, tougher start to the season, and then he might get to the spring off a half-decent handicap mark and might pick up one of those races. I'm not sure if he's going to make into a graded chaser, but I'm very excited to see Lucky Place this season.
Yeah, definitely so. And again, good quotes as well. And a horse that I feel at least one of you, if not the pair of you, really liked last season and sided with plenty of times. Maybe I'm misquoting you on that.
Didn't we?
But at one point or the other, I feel like you both sided with him at one stage. But I still don't feel like we've seen the ceiling of this horse. So plenty more to come from Lucky Place. Right, Andrew, number 2 for you.
Yeah, I'm going indoor here. And I was about to say trained by Venetia Williams, but he was. But he's one of these horses who was recently sold in the David and Maxwell dispersal sale. So now Mad Maxwell is no longer involved. He's changed hands for a significant 6-figure sum, and he's gone to Fergal O'Brien, I believe. He's only a 7-year-old, and of course, He was a big eye catcher last year because he won under David Maxwell on a few occasions, and all of those wins came right-handed in small fields. But I don't think he needs to go that way round in particular. And I was sort of particularly taken by his sixth place to Haiti Couleur in the National Hunt Challenge Cup chase at the Cheltenham Festival over 3 miles 6. So it was a 40-1 shot that day. Which, beating a fair distance, but basically just didn't stay, I don't think. So coming back in trip, I think he's going to, sort of mop up this season for new connections and find a good race or two.
Yeah. And we've had to guess the colours that he's probably going to be in behind you. Now, just remind me of the name of the new owner, Jane May, was
That's it?
Yeah.
Jane May.
Dave, you mentioned that she was a breeder and might have been responsible for Potter's Legend.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, she's in the game, and she's got a horse with Fergal O'Brien. They're the Silks that have been pitched up there. So, maybe she'll keep it in training. That's what we're suspecting in there. Do you think, because Endor's a horse of mine on the 10 to follow, I know we've whittled this down to the 5, I was hoping the horse would stay with Venetia. Did you see that as a bit of a negative or not so must?
Yeah, with the greatest respect to Fergal O'Brien, the fact that Venetia obviously knows him so well and has managed to train him to win 3 times with David Maxwell on board says that she's a genius. And a handicap mark of 133 is a good place to start the season. I can see him ending on something in the 150s.
Oh, wow, yeah, so definitely a handicapper to keep on side. It's quite sad, really, for David Maxwell quote when he says about young staying chasers is why we do it. Not anymore, but we wish him all the best all the same with new connections. Dave, you were interested in him, however, he hasn't made your top 5 list, I don't believe. So what's number 2 for you?
So number 2 for me is a very different type of horse. It's Kit's Bull for Willie Mullins. So we talked about the good, genuine, honest horses in the first 3, because I think Andrew's Indoors a very good, genuine, honest horse. Not so sure Kit's Bull is. Well, what he did at Aintree, he was backed into favouritism there for a Grade 1 after picking up a Grade 3 for Willie Mullins on just his second stable start. He was so mad before the race, he was so keen in the race, and he still travelled for, I'd say, 80% of it like a really good horse. I took that as a positive sign for him going forward. He ran at Sandown at the end of the season when Willie Mullins was, sealing up the Trainers' Championship and not necessarily throwing horses over it that he shouldn't have been, but it would have been an afterthought, I think, for Kitzbühel. They would have gone to Aintree and typically maybe wouldn't have seen him again. He did disappoint there in a hood. Thought the hood might be something that would help him out, but he's a horse that should be going chasing this season. Willie Mullins has suggested that in his stable tour that he'll be a nice staying chaser. He is only 5. He's definitely a horse to follow. I'm hoping this season we're going to see some real good progression from him, but he makes me feel a little bit like a Nick Rocket, where he was a good horse before, ended up being a little bit of a forgotten horse a couple of seasons after, and then obviously we know what Willie Mullins did with a horse like that, went and won a Grand National. The breeding for Kitzbühel, he's a Coco Rico, isn't he? So that's a Thyestes winner in Coco Beach. Even Iroko, that was a Grand National favourite last year. He's that type of horse, I think, Kitzbühel. So they need to get the freshness out of him. They need to stop him being so keen. Hopefully fences will help him settle. And then obviously Willie Mullins has got some big horses like Final Demand for staying chasers, but I think Kitzbühel can fit in somewhere, and hopefully he'll sort of show a bit more this season and he'll win a big prize, and if not, he'll be a horse to follow into next season as well. So I've already got one of my 5 for next year.
You've already done the work for next year. Yeah, if you had to guess any sire he was, and then Cocorico, he's grey. I mean, literally, if you had to have one guess that your life depended on it, it probably would have been Cocorico, wouldn't it? For Kitzbühel, not one to forget. Andrew, on to number 3 for you.
Yeah, I'm with Kingston Pride for Ollie Murphy, another one who's changed hands recently. This one, of course, started his career with Nicky Henderson, and he was beaten at odds on his debut in a polytrack bumper at Lingfield back in January of last year. I wrote him up in Racing and Football Outlook that day because, as you know, I love a bias on the all-weather at Lingfield. Yes. And one of the funniest sights in racing is watching jump jockeys try and work out how to ride the poly track at Lingfield, because they all go from the front round the inside in the depths of winter when there's a dead rail and you cannot win. And Kingston Pride was 11-8 on that day. He's finished second to Tripoli Flyer, a good horse in his own right, trained by Fergal O'Brien, ridden by Paddy Brennan on the day. And of course, how do you win at Lingfield on the poly track? You go wide round the outside, and that's what Paddy Brennan did. So I thought that was a very positive run, despite the short price that he was beaten at. He's then gone on to win over hurdles. He did bomb out once at Sandown on soft ground, and the feeling was that it was the ground that beat him, nothing else. And he was a non-runner, I think, on 4 or 5 occasions because good to soft or softer going was deemed unsuitable. Now, of course, this season he's rocked up for Ollie Murphy. He's made his chase debut at Perth. 3 runners, taking on Tripoli Flyer again, who beat him in that bumper. And I put him up in my column on GG. I think he was 5-2 best, as short as 2-1 in places. Drifted to 9-2. The ground's officially soft, but he still managed to win. So, albeit only 2 of the 3 runners finished that day. But I think he's in for a really good season, and I'm particularly looking forward to seeing him at the spring festivals on goodish ground. So, Kingston Pride, got a bright future over fences, and all hails back to that polytrack bumper.
That's great. That's a great bit of synergy, isn't it? With Tripoli Flyer throughout his campaign as well, throughout his career, I should say. But Lingfield, jump jockeys, all weather doesn't tend to suit, so always a good way to potentially pick one out of the pack. So Kingston Pride for Andrew as his number 3. What about you, Dave?
I'm going to continue the theme of horses that have gone to new ownership, and it's El Kairos, another one from the David Maxwell dispersal. The horse was 5th in the champion bumper. Obviously, it's in no disrespect to David Maxwell because he's a far better horseman than I am, but for David Maxwell to get 5th in the champion bumper at the festival is a phenomenal effort. The horse just looked like a top-class performer there, but you always want to see him go and back it up, right? So they sent the horse to Punchestown to run in a bumper there, which is... They're typically good standards of bumpers. Like the form tends to hold up into the following season, and the horse coasted towards the front, travelled like an absolute good thing. And I felt sorry for David Maxwell because I don't know how many riders had at Punchestown. I can't imagine he's been there before. The horse started to wander towards the rail, and I don't think David Maxwell knew that was probably a negative in there. Got his pocket pinched towards the end, and David Maxwell himself said that he would have won at Punchestown if I wasn't on him. It was one of those with the dispersal coming up. You look at the lots, there was Queensbury Boy that went for the Persian War that was probably regarded as the best of the David Maxwell horses that were going to go through the sales ring. But I suspected in the 10 to follow column that we put out, that was before the sales, that this is the best horse that David Maxwell has ever owned. And I think they've got Grade 1 aspirations with this horse. Being picked up for 410,000, so was sold as the top lot. He's gone to KD.
Is that the one he said he was offered 600 grand for and turned it down?
That's it, yeah. The guy that's bought the horse at the sales, they said, were you disappointed having to pay so much because it was a bit of a bidding war? And he said, not really, when I've already turned £600,000 down for it. He is like the type of horse, when you get a good bumper horse like this that, again, with respect to everyone that's in there, but Gary Moore wouldn't be my typical go-to sort of bumper trainer, but to get the horse to do what they did in bumpers, now he's gone to a serious trainer in Gordon Elliott, a trainer that knows how to get good horses to fulfil their potential. He looks all speed as well, so even the comments after the sales are really positive. They said he looks all speed, you can never have too many 2-milers. I wouldn't say he's the same as like a Romeo Cooler, but he's in the same ownership as Romeo Cooler. I can imagine him having a good tilt towards the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Obviously now that he's been picked up by Gordon, he's a little bit less of a dark horse, but I really do think that El Kairos could be something special. I think he's the type of horse that, as the next 3 or 4 years go past, he's going to feature on lots of people's sort of Cheltenham Festival fancies. I'm really excited about his prospect, and I'm glad that he's been sold to a big outfit.
I'm so pleased that one of you put this horse up because he is the one who fascinates me this season. And like I say, being the top lot, going to Gordon Elliott as well, for all that. I know the David Maxwell dispersal, we're all fascinated by it. And I'm gutted to see David Maxwell not going to be riding on the track. He's such a character, such an enthusiast about the game.
As an in-running punter, I'm not glad to see him.
You should be delighted, there's your angle. But of course it is going to be fascinating to see how these horses fare in their new yards or new ownership and new jockeys and what exactly we're going to expect from them. So El Kairos, fascinating. Number 4, Mr. Mount.
I'm going Knight of Allen for Jane Williams, only a 5-year-old. And a horse that made a very encouraging chase debut at Chepstow's October meeting. Only 3 runners, good to firm ground. But I've had horses with Nick and Jane Williams over the years, and I found they were never overly schooled at home when they went over fences. I once went to an open day and saw a horse fall schooling over poles, and that was one that I had to share in.
That wasn't Rev, was it?
No, that was a horse called Quasar Duderis. So they tend to learn their craft on the track when it comes to jumping, and an awful lot of horses from the yard get beaten first time out over fences and then take a massive step forward at the second time of asking. And they often get pitched into graded company or listed companies second time, despite being beaten in a novice chase on the chase debuts, and do really well. Now, talking to Jane and Chester Williams recently, Knight of Allen's probably going to go for the novices handicap chase at Cheltenham's November meeting. That's run on the Sunday, and he does look very well handicapped. He was a big eye catcher second time out last term when he ran up against Steel Ally in a 2.25 mile handicap hurdle at Haydock. It was a massive advantage to be on the front end that day. The winner made all. The runner-up was in second place for much of the race. He did best of those to come from off the pace. This horse, I think, looks really well handicapped. And again, although I'll be backing him if he turns up at Cheltenham next month, it is the spring as well and the big festivals where I think there'll be something for him as well. And he's only had 2 runs in the spring. He's won them both. And I think this is a horse at the right end of the handicap. Very young as well. Plenty of promise from that chase debut at Chepstow. And a mutual friend of ours rode him, of course.
Yes, and spoke very glowingly afterwards about him as well. So again, this is another one that I'm really pleased one of you has put up for all that. I was kind of hoping at the same time he might go slightly under the radar because he is very well treated, and that was some run on that reappearance start. So yeah, hoping for more than from Knight of Erlen, horse number 4 for Andrew. Dave, your number 4.
So it's another night. My one's Western Night for the Tizzards. I say the Tizzards, it's Joe Tizzard now, isn't it? But I'm sure they're still all a bit involved. But you can see even from the picture there, like he's a big stamp of a horse. He just looks every inch a chaser. And last season, he was tried in some decent company, ran at Cheltenham and was a bit disappointing there ultimately, then went to Doncaster, I think it was the River Don, where he was again pretty disappointing in there, but we didn't see him after. So I think something maybe was amiss. I think he maybe even tipped up in that race. But he just looked like a very progressive horse last season, and he didn't actually progress as I might have expected. And I think he does just look like the type of horse that needs a fence to fulfil his promise. So although he's underwhelmed in those last couple of starts at the end of the season and didn't really finish out the season like you might expect, I thought he might have had a tilt somewhere in the spring. He's just a horse that I think the Tizzards will do so well with over fences. He's managed to end the season on an official rating of 132. I think midway through the season, before he started running in the races like the Cheltenham Grade 2 and then going to the River Don, a lot of people would have expected him to be finishing the season a lot higher than that. And as Andrew's mentioned, with some horses that you think potentially improve a stone over fences, I think he would do that anyway, but I already think he's very well handicapped. I suppose my question mark about him at the moment is what trip would be best for him, because I think he looks like a big horse. You always assume that they're big stay-in chasers. The Tizzards would know better than me on that, but that's another thing I like about the yard that he's with. They've never been scared to try a horse over different trips to find out what they need to do. Rather than forcing them to be a 2-miler or forcing them to be a 3-miler, they'll quite happily try him at 2, they'll try him at 3 to find out the distance. So I'd pitch him as sort of a middle distance horse, but I wouldn't be surprised if Western Knight at the end of the season ended up running in graded company because he's picked up a big handicap along the way.
So 2 Knights then to go out for horse number 4 for Dave and Andrew there, Knight of Erlen, and then Western Knight that we've just been seeing. Right, 5th and final horse for this part, Andrew. Who are you going with?
I'm going to the other end of the alphabet here. I'm with Zertact for my favourite trainer, Venetia Williams. Yes. So having not tipped one of hers with Indoor, I'm going for this one. Now, this is a funny one. It hasn't won in 6 starts for Venetia. Did win 3 times in his native France. And he's had a couple of long gaps in his time with his current yard as well. He was off for 415 days after disappointing at Foss Lass when making his debut for the yard. He's had another break of 269 days, but his 4 runs last season suggested that things were coming together. And although he was beaten every time, the distance he was beaten was sort of very much on the small side, sort of 3 or 4 lengths, 5 lengths. And on his latest start behind one of Tizzards at Newbury, the step back to 2 miles, 7.5 furlongs didn't suit, having run well over 3.5 at Windsor the time before. And I just think with that season behind him now, and there was a sort of positive comments from Venetia Williams in a recent stable interview. And I think he's going to make hay in sort of fairly modest staying chases this season. But he's the kind of horse who, once everything clicks, I think he can run up a bit of a sequence. And the sort of horse we'll be seeing ploughing through the mud at Haydock over 3.5 and on virtually unraceable ground. It's the typical Williams inmate that will keep on grinding away and keep going when everyone else has had enough.
Yeah, the fact that he stays so well, he appreciates those conditions. No part of that comes as any surprise, does it, for a Venetia Williams horse? So fascinating to see what he gets up to and what trips he's going to be running over then this season. Dave, lucky last horse for you.
Yeah, I couldn't say I've saved the best to last. I've saved Be Aware for last, though.
Yeah, you saved the divide opinion horse till last.
I know, and he's the sort of horse where it's almost like rooting for the underdog. Like, I want him to show what he can do, and I think there's a lot of people in the world of racing that see a lot of potential in this horse.
I sided with him so many times last year.
Absolutely, and he's 7 wins now, or 7 runs without a win. The only win he's ever had came on his racecourse debut, but twice sent off favourite for spring festivals last year. Ran a massive race in the Greatwood at the start of the season last year. Started the season on 130 and has ended on 136. I don't think there's very many people that would expect that to have happened. But they've talked about this horse and the fact that he's a bit crazy. He's got his own way of doing things. He doesn't like the hustle and bustle of races, and that for me excuses why his performances have been below what we'd expect for them. We know there's small field sizes in lots of the British races anyway, and Andrew's touched on the couple of horses that have already made their debuts. They're running in 3-runner fields. This horse is now going chasing, so hopefully a fence will help him concentrate, but I don't think he's going to be in the hustle and bustle of big fields. Even when it comes to like March, you talk about Arkles, we get 3, 4, 5, 6-runner Arkles. I don't think he's quite that standard, but they have talked about him being a 2-mile chaser, and they're saying that preferably he wants soft ground. So I feel like he's the type of horse for the Skeltons where they've gone for sort of a handicap last year and it didn't quite work out. That's not going to perturb them from doing the same thing, I think, again this season. And if you've got a horse that's a little bit quirky that you could excuse running underperforming, I think he might end up as a horse that might be like a Grand Annual type for
I was about to say, are you worried that a mark of 136, everything's going to be geared towards the Grand Annual?
Yeah, and I think it could just be that. But potentially with a horse like this, because I say assuming, but they're always trying to get the best out of these horses. If he starts off and goes in fine fettered and turns into a half-decent horse, there's lots of 2-mile novice chases this season, especially this side of the sea, that a horse like he could pick up. If he doesn't and things don't go to plan, then definitely I think the Grand Annual could be a plan B. But he's definitely one of those horses, isn't he, that it gets through to the spring, and whether he's run really well or he's run really bad, you'll be like, yeah, but they've clearly been saving him for this. And you'll excuse him whatever he does through the season. I just think he's got loads of ability, and I really hope he just gets his head screwed on this season. I've said it in here, and we'll all say this is a bit of like a cliche quote, but the fence should help him settle down. But if worse comes to worse and it doesn't, and actually appreciates coming back over hurdles, could be another tilt at a Coral Cup next year. I just think whatever he does, something's going to happen with him in the spring, and one day it's going to click and he's going to get his head in front. We saw the Skeltons do it with Fortune Demar at Cheltenham in the October meeting, a horse that is a screwball. The Hood, they just delivered him on the line.
Drifters do win.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I think Be Away is a horse that lots of people have followed before. I'm not giving up on him just yet, but I probably don't think he'll be on next year's list like Kit's Bull, unless he gets stuff done this season. But if he does, maybe that'll mean that he's reached his ceiling. But he definitely hasn't yet. 136 is a very lenient mark, and I think he's a very good horse.
So yeah, catch him this season perhaps, but you may have to wait a bit of time for it to come to fruition. However, he's still going to be fascinating. If he starts it so well, you know, who knows where he could end up, or he could end up very well handicapped and be a typical Grand Annual type then for the Skeltons going to the Cheltenham Festival. Right, lads, that wraps up the 5 to follow for the season part of this show. So make sure to get your notebooks and all of those horses into your trackers, ready to go to war with for the season. Up next, though, we have the lads' big predictions for the season. Right, time for some potential controversy in terms of the lads' big predictions for the season. So, lads, we're going to kickstart with the Gold Cup winner. Andrew, who wins it?
Sorry, what about the quiz? We're not having one this week.
No, we've quickly shelved that until Royal Ascot next year.
I've been revising as well. Disappointing. I'm going to be very boring. Go for the current favourite. I know the way you're thinking. Last year's winner, who won impressively despite jumping out to his right. And something he did when winning the Kim Muir at the previous season's Cheltenham Festival. It doesn't stop him winning very comfortably, though. Since he's been switched to fences, he's had 3 runs in the spring. He's won them all by a combined margin of 18 lengths. He's Irish trained, like 9 of the last 10 winners. If you bet all the Irish runners in this race in the last 10 years, you would make a loss. But if you only concentrated on those at 12 to 1 or shorter, you'd make a profit of over £21 to a £1 level stake. The only proviso with betting on it the way you think is probably not to do so now, because last season he was brought along steadily. He finished 7th, 5th and 4th on his first 3 starts. He sort of showed signs of revival at the DRF, and I think we're going to see the same again, perhaps. So, maybe he'll get beaten on his seasonal debut and drift for Cheltenham as a result. But he's my idea of the winner.
It's weird, isn't it? The different approaches that we have to Gold Cup winners nowadays. When we've seen Galopin Des Champs, who just wins everything, but then you'll see like an Alboon Photo who will win on his way but only have his one start at Tremor. And the fact that, I know the way you're thinking, if he doesn't score in his first few starts and like say if he goes on the drift then but he is at the same time being brought to the boil for the main intended target.
Yeah, it's one of those, he could get beaten 10 lengths into second first time out and probably shorten for the Gold Cup, I guess.
Yeah, I'd probably go that way, but yeah, he does look to have the world at his feet, doesn't he? I know the way you're thinking. Dave, who are you siding with for the Gold Cup?
I'm going to side with a strange one. I'm going to go for Gary.
Gary! Here he is.
Great name.
Well, I think he's maybe about 16 at the time of recording. Which I think is a generous price. But obviously this far out for the Gold Cup, it's tricky to bet. As Andrew said, the path that I know the way you think is going to take means his price probably will move a little bit. If we look at the path that Gaelic Warrior is going to take this season, it's all eyes on the King George. I think they talk about the John Durkan on the way in, but he's favourite for a King George at the moment. I think lots of people think that direction, that track is going to suit him down to the ground. I just feel like when he wins the King George, he's just naturally going to shorten up for a Gold Cup anyway. They haven't made a decision for where they're going to go at Cheltenham, but although he feels like he's been around forever, he's only a 7 turning 8-year-old, so this is the time for him to turn into a stay and chaser. He had that start at Aintree, didn't he, where Patrick rode him, and it was a very impressive performance. I mainly got put off him because Patrick was on. Again, no disrespect to the jockey. When you see the pecking order, you don't suspect that that's the first string. And then when he went to Sandown, they dropped back in trip, he was just phenomenal there, but he just proved that he's just a much better horse than some of the others. You go back to his Arkle win, which again probably sounds crazy to talk about a Cheltenham Gold Cup horse, but he got, I think it was 172 RPR that day. I know the way you're thinking, I think it was somewhere around about 180 for winning his Gold Cup, so that's the sort of figures that you need to be able to run to, but he's only £7 off of that on what he's shown at his best, and he's shown his best at Cheltenham. For all that he got beat in that Boodles, which I'll never stop talking about, he's come second and first at Cheltenham festivals. I just think he's just way too big a price. There's question marks about Galopin Des Champs at the start of the season, saying he's had a little bit of a setback. Obviously, he's won a couple of Gold Cups. He's run really well in it last year. He's not the type of horse I think they're going to take any chances with if he's not 100%. It may be the case that come Cheltenham, that Gaelic Warrior is the first string for Clasarton, and again, his price would contract. I think, like Andrew said, with the way that I know the way you're thinking is going to sort of be campaigned this season, I suppose the only difference they'll make this year is they probably will enter him in the Gold Cup rather than having to supplement him. But that's the difference. Last year they didn't expect him to win a Gold Cup. This year they do. And I think that might have a little bit of an influence on how they do actually campaign in this season. So I think that Gaelic Warrior could surprise a few people and win the Gold Cup. Long way to go between now and then, but 16-1 looks worth siding with.
Oh, I'm so glad that you've sided with Gary, and he's got his shout out on this show as well, but what a winner of a Gold Cup he would be. Champion hurdle winner. This is going to be a fascinating one. Andrew, who's your idea of the winner?
Well, 48 hours ago, I was going to put up East India Dock as an each-way play, sort of talking about his improvement on the flat since his close-up third in the Triumph Hurdle. The fact that Lulamba is a lot shorter and he didn't deserve to be 50-1, and then of course he's had a setback and is out for the season, unfortunately. So I've gone safe-ish and gone with Stateman, who I was quite surprised if I was only an 8-year-old, because he does seem to have been around for a long time now.
Yeah.
He's only had 20 runs, he's won 14 of those, and of course he's been to Cheltenham and done it in the 2022 County Hurdle. He was, I think, got a handicap mark of 141 that day, which just looks laughable with hindsight. Since then, he's not been quite so fortunate at Cheltenham. He was second to Constitution Hill in this race too, in 2023. And then, of course, last year, he, in a carnage race, one of the most incredible Cheltenham races I've ever seen. Yeah. He looks set to bolt up when falling late on. Now, he did get beaten on his first couple of runs last season, but he bounced back in the spring and he signed off with a win at the Punchestown Festival. And I think the key nowadays is that he needs to have had at least a couple of runs in the past 3 months. When he's had that, he's had 11 runs, 9 wins, that fall in the Champion Hurdle last year and the second to Constitution Hill. So, and that was, we're talking a peak form Constitution Hill, not the Constitution Hill we saw last season, more of which later. But yeah, he's he's very, very difficult to beat when he's, when he's on song, when he's race fit. And I think that's the stake man we'll see in the spring. And he's around about 7 or 8 to 1. I think you back him each way at that price. Yeah. You're going to be very unlucky if he doesn't line up there at half those odds or less.
Yeah, considering he's there every single year, we know exactly which race he's going for. Yeah. And touch wood, his constitution is so, ironically, is so good. The fact that, we just will be anticipating seeing him. And, of course, he's Paul Townend's favourite horse as well. So a solid contender for the champion hurdle for Andrew, Dave. Who are you siding with? Yeah,
Stateman's obviously a proper horse, but I think another horse that's a proper horse is William Money. We haven't seen too much of him. He's 7, turning 8 now, so already a year junior to Stateman, but he's had probably a quarter amount of races. I thought he was pretty impressive in the Supreme behind Copet de Board. I thought Copet de Board was a very impressive winner, but William Money did surprise me a bit, to be fair. They put him in a hood for the first time, and we know that his trainer Barry Connell isn't shy of saying what he thinks. He talked in previous races before Cheltenham how he was getting frustrated why the jockeys were trying to hold him up in races when he's really keen and fresh and like needs to be up with the pace. But his best effort came in a race where there was more pace. It was a proper Grade 1, that Supreme. And now he's going into open company where some novices may struggle to make that transition. I think it's going to suit him down to the ground. The faster they go, the better for him. I think he's about 16 to 1 at the time of recording. There's been a comment that's come up from Barry Connell in the last sort of 24 hours to say that is the route they're going to go down. There was an opportunity potentially for him to go chasing. But you look at a horse, I feel like it's a curse word to say, but the New Lion, we talked about him in the mid-season preview that his price at the time, he was the one that we wanted to side against. He proved us wrong at Cheltenham, and it was a very impressive win in that race. But I don't know how strong that form's going to be. He got an RPR, or he's got an official rating of £3 higher than William Money for his second in the Supreme. Yet one's a 4 to 1 favourite, one's a 16 to 1 shot, and I think that the sort of the hustle and bustle of a champion hurdle will suit William Money more than it would suit the New Lion. I think the New Lion just outsped a couple of slower horses, whereas I think William Money kept up with Copet de Board, who is an absolute machine.
Yes.
So I think he's got arguably as good a form in the book as the New Lion. He's 4 times the price, and Barry Connell winning a champion chase with Marine Nationale. We know that he's a capable trainer to get the job done. So I think William Money, again at the prices, looks like the one to be siding with for a champion hurdle at this stage.
It's a very open champion hurdle, isn't it? So good prices to go to war with the pair of your selections. Maybe not quite as open is for champion chase. So Andrew, who wins?
Well, I did try to find an outsider, stab one out each way at a big price, but I just kept coming back to Sergino.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I'd rather back him at 4 to 1 than he is available now. Now, he won his sole start in France. He's now 5 from 5 for Nicky Henderson, winning by a combined margin of 43 lengths. He was so impressive when winning the Wayward Lad on his chase debut, beating Ballyburn by 7.5 lengths. You could argue that he's yet to race on the old course at Cheltenham, but his sole visit to the track saw him win on the new course in Grade 2 Hurdle Company. He's won a fighting fifth at Newcastle on a stiff left-handed track. I don't think the track will be an issue. It's obviously his well-being, having missed the remainder of the season after that Wayward Lad win. But assuming he's on song and he turns up at Cheltenham in good form, I think he's going to take the beating.
To be honest, I didn't know he was 4 to 1. Yeah. That seems very generous. No. It just feels like you're kind of taking that price for him to turn up, which of course he has had his, he has been a fragile horse at moments throughout his career, but he's in the right hands to be able to get him to the Cheltenham Festival on song, Dave.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Andrew. I think Sergino is the most likely winner of the champion chase. We talk about him with the setbacks, like the year of his juvenile season, it was just because Nicky Henderson was apparently had some sort of bug, didn't he? Or his horses weren't running to form, so it wasn't specifically Sergino. Obviously, he proved all that sort of, dispelled it, I guess, in Aintree, where he was very impressive. We talked about his chase season last year where he beat Ballyburn. That was a phenomenal piece of form. And I think it was an infection that he picked up rather than it being, like a physical injury. It's more of something that's slightly different. So for all that he's had gaps in his sort of career up to now, they're not, for me, any reason to be concerned about his well-being. It's not like it's a leg injury or things like that. I think there could be like a reoccurrence in there. And even if there was an issue with him, there's no better trainer than Nicky Henderson to get a horse back. And we're talking about getting a horse back that's going to be a 5-year-old turning 6 going for a champion chase. I think Masterminded would be the last 6-year-old to win a champion chase. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Sergino. And at this stage, 4 to 1 favouritism for him looks like a generous price. He'll end up being short near the time. And then when we do our Cheltenham Festival preview, we'll be talking about the hoodoo of the champion chase, and you're not wanting to be on a favourite. But I'd rather have him in the book anyway at this stage of the season. And I'm just hope that he's the type of horse that's going to dispel that myth of favourites don't win a champion chase, because I think he'll go off favourite and I think he will win.
both of you to an agreement about Sergino then for the Champion Chase. On to, well, would you say the big one of the season? I'm not entirely sure exactly how I would word it, but it feels like it's a big prediction, though, this far out all the same, for the Grand National. Andrew, I mean, it's never an easy task, is it, this far out to try and find the winner, but who's caught your eye at this stage?
No, very, very tricky. I mean, stats-wise, sort of avoid the old boys, those aged 10 or older, 0 from 164 in the last 10 renewals of the National now. And look for Irish bred horses as well. They've won 8 of the last 10 renewals and a profit of £66 to a £1 level stake. Now, of course, what we saw last year with Nick Rocket was a horse who had won after the weights were published in February. And that's been quite a good angle as well recently. A few people pointed that out, like Rory Delagi, I think, last year. So to say, like, look for a horse who's... wins in late February, early March, and then runs in the Grand National. So trying to predict that at this stage is very difficult. But another angle, of course, is to look at last season's Irish Grand National, which has been a good pointer. That race, of course, was won by Haiti Couleur, who heads the anti-post betting for the National around about 16 to 1. But given his progression last season, if he continues that way, he could end up in the Gold Cup. A bit like I Know the Way You're Thinking, last year. One horse who was interesting was Will Do for Gordon Elliott. Now, he's 100 to 1 at the time. Now, he ran behind Haiti Couleur at Cheltenham. I think he was finishing third because that race worked out. Haiti Couleur went on to win at Fairyhouse, and of course Resplendent Grey, who was fourth in that race, won the Bet365 Gold Cup on his final start last season. And breeding-wise as well, I think Aintree is going to suit. It's there's not many sort of walk in the parks who've run in the National. I think it's we've had was it Nick Rocket? I'm trying to think. There was.
Is he walk in the park? Is he?
Yeah, Nick Rocket was walk in the
He is
park.
walk in the park because you tend to think of them as quite speedy.
Yeah, and Walk in the Mill was fourth at 25 to 1. And
of course, who loves the National fence?
And so surprisingly, Walk in the Park's only had 3 runners in the National, and those were the 2. So I thought given he's trained by Gordon Elliott, he's probably going to be aimed at the race, and then he could be one that pops up at a price. Another one who sort of caught the eye but is British trained was Johnny Who.
Yes, yeah.
And again, he being owned by JP McManus is the type of horse you could be laid out for it completely. So for the purposes of this video, I've gone for Will Do, but sort of Haiti Couleur, Johnny Who were on the radar as well.
Yeah, of course, it's going to be fascinating to see which way Haiti Couleur goes throughout the season. But yeah, Nick Rocket, I never realised he was walk in the park until now, so that was a good little pedigree corner stat for us in terms of Will Do for Anne.
Oh, and another breeding angle. Walk in the parks tend to peak at the age of 9 over fences as well, and Will Do will be a 9-year-old next spring. In terms of their sort of percentage strike rate, is higher at the age of 9.
Is it? Considering, again, you think about them as just top quality bumper performers, but obviously that's just class coming to the fore at that stage.
Yeah, you think they're quite precocious and going to be better at younger age.
9. Right, I'll watch out for that going forwards then. Dave, your idea of the National winner?
It's a hard race to pick at the best of times, isn't it? And we've said obviously this far out, it's a tricky one, but I can't believe that Iroko's 20 to 1. Sent off favourite for the race last year. Things didn't go to plan last season, or maybe they did, but there was definitely something a bit fishy about last year in his preparation towards the Grand National. We saw JP McManus have some other horses that finished in and around where he did in the Grand National. He still ended up finishing 4th in the National. He made a bit of a mistake at the last. It wasn't a bad mistake, it was just not the cleanest of jumps, but he was 6th there, picked up a couple of horses, stayed on strong through the line, but I Am Maximus was up there for JP McManus, Meeting of the Waters was up there for JP McManus, and I just wonder whether the cat got out of the bag a bit with Iroko going for a Grand National, and that it seemed like in the middle of the year that maybe they changed tact a little bit and they thought maybe it'll be one for the year after. He started and ended last season on 152, so they've got away with a Grand National 4th, sending him off as favourite, and he's finished the season on the same mark. I don't know what they'll do with him this term, but I know that they'll be gearing him towards a Grand National. There's every reason why he would go off around about the same price as he did last year. It wouldn't be that you'd expect him to win during the season because he didn't do that last year, but it was good ground at the Grand National meeting for 2025, and that is not what Iroko wants. He wants a bit of cut in the ground. So if it had been soft the ground and he wouldn't have been taken off his feet early in the race, I think he had every chance of potentially winning it last year. So yeah, 20 to 1 about him just looks grossly wrong. And for a race that I know that he will be trained towards, I think Iroko can win the Grand National this year.
That's a big price considering last year, but of course, like I say, people are probably a bit perturbed or put off of him because of the kind of strangeness going on in the background around Iroko.
You've both done really well not mentioning the word handbrake when you talk about Iroko.
So you'll mention it gladly for us.
Oh, cool.
Who would have thought? Yeah, another son of Cocorico for you as well on this show. So yeah, Iroko is going to be fascinating. What else is going to be fascinating is the champion trainer. Of course, we're talking about the UK then for this one. Willie Mullins, of course, who has really set his sights on it, but notably so in the back end of the last couple of seasons. However, Andrew, it's been interesting seeing he's had a runner at Cheltenham already this year. He seems to be plying his trade and really going for the title even earlier this year. Is he going to win it again?
Yeah, talk about non-triers. I don't think he was a trier in this race last year, was he? And, it was as though someone sent him a message about a week before the Scottish National. What's that? We can win the British Championship.
You do know it wraps up in a week. Yeah. Oh, right, send over everything.
Quick. Stick them all on the ferry.
Yeah.
And he did seem to win it without a great deal of effort, I guess. Yeah. And of course, winning the Grand National obviously helped.
Yeah.
And there are a sort of few key races like that are going to make a huge difference. But even if he doesn't win the National this year, and if it is my 100 to 1 poke, will do, then Dave says he's a certainty to win the King George anyway with your mate Gary. So he'll make up for it in other areas. But he's got so many horses. He's got so much talent, and he's got a lot of British-based owners now are going to be sort of quite happy to have their horses run in Britain as opposed to Ireland. Brian Drew, for example, over there now, would have previously had more horses with Nichols and Skelton and others, and David Pipe. So, I think he's got the ammunition. And, even if Dan Skelton hasn't really got the big guns, I don't think, for the grade ones. And I think it's going to be very hard for him.
When it's done on prize money, you want those big grade one horses, don't you? And Willie Mullins has just got an entire... Well, I was going to say barn full, probably about 5 barns full of the Grade 1 winners to go to war with. And it's an interesting point on the British owner angle as well, and having more runners over here. And of course, he's got the means and the team behind him to be able to figure out the logistics to get all the horses over and to be mopping up these prizes, Dave.
Yeah, and I agree with Andrew. I think it is Willie Mullins this year to win the Trainers' Championship. I don't think there's too many firms that have priced up, but I think Dan Skelton's maybe about 4 to 6, and Willie Mullins 11 to 10 at the time of recording. Obviously, Dan Skelton was the best of the British last season, and obviously Willie Mullins, I don't know what the figures were at the end of it, but he had to get the first 3 home in a Grand National to tip him over the edge. Because he's just a natural-born winner, Willie Mullins, I think the key factor will be he doesn't want to not win the Irish Trainers' Championship, so I think he's always going to want to try and get that sewn up before we start sending some horses over to this side of the sea. So I don't know how much we'll see early, but I definitely think now that he's got the title and he's got the mantle there and he's thinking, well, I can make even more history by retaining that and keep doing it. I think he will send horses over, and we used to see Forheen and Valtour come over to Kempton for Boxing Day. We know that Gary's coming over, all being well. Again, he sent Lossiemouth last year. That was on fast ground. You never know that there's races where he could send horses over, pick up prize money that he didn't last year. So I would side with Willie Mullins. It's a 2-horse race as far as I'm concerned. It's Dan Skelton or Willie Mullins. If Willie Mullins doesn't do it and Dan Skelton does get it, then I'll be happy for him. But I just feel like Willie Mullins, like I say, just a natural-born winner, and he's going to get the job done again. I'm
surprised at those prices that he's not favourite, to be honest. I mean, fair play, especially the fact that he looks as though he's making a beeline a lot earlier than in previous years. And I know, of course, he had the Grand National success, which really gave him the impetus to go for it. But I'm still surprised, though, the fact that they've got them that way around. Now, we've done champion trainer, champion jockey. We've already got a runaway leader, Andrew. So does Sean Bone just go on and win it?
He already has won it. They should just pay him out, shouldn't they? So, I think he does. I'm just looking at his stats, and 10 of the last 11 calendar years, he's outperformed the market and had a lot higher winners against expected, depending on the price of his mounts. This year so far, 185 winners from 735 rides, 25% plus strike rate. Profit at Exchange SP, but not at SP, and he's some of the horses he's won on that he had absolutely no right to. It's incredible. And one thing I hadn't noticed previously until someone pointed it out on X recently was that he doesn't have that many falls or unseats. And I've heard various theories regarding his build and his centre of gravity, and you probably know more about that being an experienced rider than Dave or I. But obviously it's significant because, falls lead to injuries, injuries lead to spells on the sidelines, and the inability to ride winners. So I think he's won it.
Yeah,
barring accidents.
Yes, God forbid. Yeah, touch wood that he manages to stay injury-free throughout. But like you say, he has got a very good record of that, and he is built. I don't know if you've kind of stood up sort of next to him, of course. Like he's not the tallest, but he is just solid. He is so solid, but below centre of gravity.
Do you think you mind if I prod him the next time we see him?
I know, just give it a try, just to see the density, to see why do you not get hurt when you fall? But and the fact that he rides so short as well, perhaps when a horse does, fall or unseat him, he can kind of get flung clear. So I don't know, maybe there's a whole load of things in it, but Dave, has he already got it won? Yeah,
and we've obviously touched on the fact there that, like, sort of bar an injury, and we don't want to talk about that too much more because we don't want to tempt fate in there, but it's the same as a horse that's got a race at their mercy. There's everyone knows what the only reasons why something might not happen, but yeah, it'd be nice to see him do it. And I like the fact of, he's good for the sport. He's a young enough jockey that I like it when there's someone that's the new kid on the block that you could see him doing this for years to come. And I just hope that he starts getting some opportunities to win at the festivals too, because the time that Brian Hughes was getting his sort of jockey titles and he was riding in different places but not getting the big Grade 1 successes, it sort of tarnishes being the champion jockey. Sean Bowen is more than capable of riding with the best of them, and I hope he just gets the chances. But yeah, he'll be champion jockey.
And he's also just the nicest guy as well. So not that counts toward durability in terms of you riding winners and things, but it's always nicer, isn't it, when they're a really nice person.
Well, hopefully it's not as miserable as some ex-champion jockeys when he's a TV pundit in 10 years' time.
Some. You can deduce yourself who Andrew is talking about there. I wouldn't know. Dark horse to follow, lads, for the season. Andrew, who's your dark horse? This
one is very dark. A funny one called A Road to Home, trained by Willie Mullins. Now, sort of joined Willie Mullins last season. Ran out at Navan on his debut, where he was kept so far towards the inside. He jumped the wings and jumped those little sort of fences they have, the little gates they have to sort of stop people straying onto the infield. And then next time out, he ran against a shorter price stablemate at Naas. And I won't say what my exact tracker notes were, but I suggested that this was a sort of a confidence restorer after that incident the time before, and that beating the stablemate wasn't perhaps as high on the agenda as it should have been. He then was one of these ones that Patrick Mullins rode in Britain next time, started off at 9-2 on at Hexham, and duly won. Since then, he has not been so great. He had a fall in a listed handicap hurdle at Fairyhouse, and then this recently a couple of runs over fences in October 2025, a third and a fifth, but he looks like he needs a bit more time and he needs better ground. So I looked at his breeding, and it's going to be a case of good spring ground. I think is going to bring about improvement. And I think although he wasn't supersonic in the point-to-point field, I think his future on his breeding is as a chaser. And I think sort of plodding around as Irish maiden and novice hurdles in the mud has not been his thing. And so far over fences, it might be that he's going to be very well handicapped when we do get to the DRF and Cheltenham and Aintree next year. So it's not a horse that will be on many people's radars despite who trains him. But I think he's just one that I want on my side, and that whatever his opening handicap mark, he could end up sort of £20 higher by the end of the season.
And again, it may have to be something that we could sort of have to wait to see to come to fruition then, but he is a horse who could find his way through the handicap. But Road to Home then, trained by Willie Mullins for Andrew's dark horse. Dave, your dark horse.
Well, yeah, it's not as well-defined as Andrew's dark horse. That's a great shout for Road to Home. I've gone for Cocktail Diving or Cocktail Divin. It doesn't have the apostrophe at the end, so I think it's Divin, but the commentator always says Divin. It's Henry de Bromhead trained novice chaser for this season. It's got an entry this Friday for Down Royal. That looks like a pretty hot contest. Brighter Days Ahead's got an entry in there. Romeo Coolio's got an entry in there. Wingmen's got an entry in there. We know Gordon likes to start the season off quickly, but we also know that Henry de Bromhead improves his horses for a fence. This horse has got an official rating of 137 to see out the back end of last season. There was a comment after the horse ran in January, which I thought was really interesting, because I think he'd run over the middle trip. They ran him back over 2 miles and he got beaten, but he was beaten well outside. I think it might have been behind Work Ahead. He'd run behind Cade Dothie before that and got fairly close to that horse. But there was a comment from Aintree de Bromhead, not only the fact that they ran him over the wrong trip, but also said that he didn't think he was actually 100%. I think they had a bit of a concern, and then they ran him because they thought everything was fine, and maybe something came back after that he wasn't. So he had to pick up a maiden hurdle in and around the Cheltenham Festival. I think that was around about the 3rd of March that he lost his maiden tag. And then they sent him to Aintree, jumped into Grade 1 company after just winning a maiden hurdle. That was only a month after winning that maiden hurdle, so I think he was sort of thrown in the deep end. Ran all right behind Honesty Policy, and obviously the Aintree Grade 1s aren't as strong as the Cheltenham ones, but he hasn't had a straightforward novice hurdle campaign. He's finished the season on 137. He's trained by Henry de Bromhead, who would improve a horse for a fence. And if you look at horses like a Plutard that go and win a novices handicap chase and then turn into Gold Cup horses, I reckon that's the capability that this horse could be. And I think a season starting of 137, potentially against horses like Brighter Days Ahead, he might just be hidden a little bit behind. He might look like he's disappointing, but I think in the spring, it'll just impress. I think he's a well-handicapped horse. Might not be the darkest of horses because he did run in that Grade 1 at Aintree, but I think he's sort of underappreciated at the stage.
Yeah, certainly so. Like I say, I don't know how to pronounce it, to be completely honest. Cocktail Divin, Cocktail Diving, whichever it is, definitely make sure to make a note of that horse. Right, on to Shock Festival winner. As if we haven't asked you difficult enough questions for these big predictions as it currently is. Andrew, your Shock Festival winner, whether or not that be at Cheltenham or at Aintree.
Yeah, can we extend that to air as well? And
yeah, why not?
Grand National meeting.
We'll make up the rules as we go.
Yeah, my horse is Ask Brewster for Evan Williams, who starts the season as a 6-year-old. He's already won at Chepstow's opening meeting, and the key to him is the ground and the time of year. He's had 6 runs between March and October, and he's won every single one. He's had 7 runs from November to February. He's lost every single one. So it's simply a case of I don't know if we'll see him again until the spring. Maybe I'm hoping he has sort of 1 run. It's a bit softer than ideal, and he finishes a 17-length 4th, and we can get a price about him next time that he runs. But his handicap mark at the moment, I think he's on 129. He might get into the Kim Muir based on that if the ground was right, but I see him more as an Aintree or a Scottish National type. Now, I think his trainer did mention the Scottish National as a potential future target after that Chepstow reappearance win. So, yeah, look out for him at any of the spring festivals, so Ask Brewster.
There we go, we're extending it to air as well, then, potentially, for Ask Brewster ahead of the, for the Shock Festival winner angle. Dave, yours?
Yeah, another well-defined one for Andrew. That could have even been down as a sort of dark horse.
Yeah.
Well, Ask Brewster. Mine's not a dark horse, and probably when it comes up on the screen, people won't think it's a Shock Festival winner, but Constitution Hill.
This is it. No, you need to do it. You need to justify this.
It's because he's probably, arguably, one of the best national hunt horses we've seen, and I'm saying it's going to be a shock if he wins at Cheltenham, but he was god-awful last season. Even when he came to Aintree and he's making mistakes, like I don't want to say like he's like fully got at the game, but he just doesn't know what he's doing anymore. And having all that ability, something like a Dele Alli, for example, and then having the world at your feet and then not fulfilling your potential, seems like he's going down those sorts of routes. Now, we know that Nicky Henderson is a phenomenal trainer. He can get a horse back to doing things, but he's had all of last season to do it. He has these gallops where he has problems. He has problems at home. There's just a lot that's happened with him that's gone under the bridge that I just think there's no way in the world Constitution Hill will win at the Cheltenham Festival or the Aintree Festival. I would go as far as to say I'd actually be a little bit shocked if he even picked up a Grade 1 this season. I think he's going to potentially start out early on and maybe get taken off, get beaten in a race early, and then it might just be the case of they'll work back to the spring festivals and try and do something with him. I think it's more likely that he's going to be a flop this season than he's going to win at the festival. So he's about 8-1 for a champion hurdle. I think he should be twice the price, but I do understand that there's people that think that he can come back and he should win at the festival. But I personally would be very shocked if Constitution Hill wins at any spring festival this season.
However, certainly would have the shock factor for sure. I love the whole Dele Alli reference as well. So when we see Constitution Hill playing for, was it Como? Then we'll know that, he's fully gone at the game at that point. But every single person, if you're just a fan of racing, national hunt racing horses, you want to see him coming back, don't you? So shock, but it would bring the house down if Constitution Hill came back to his formidable best. Now, another tricky one, a young jockey to watch out for this season. So trying to unearth potential talent here, Andrew. So who caught your eye?
Yeah, this was tricky. You mentioned before recording that the way Lily Pinchin's riding from the front over fences, I might give her a favourable mention. But 26 probably doesn't count as young, I don't think, in jockey terms. But one that only came to my attention very recently is Owen Staples, based with Gavin Cromwell in Ireland. Now, he's been riding a lot of winners recently, most of them over hurdle. He's had 110 rides over hurdles, 17 winners. Profit at SP, profit of over £70 at Betfair SP after commission. And based on the prices of those, he should only have had 10 winners according to the market, but he's massively outperforming his odds. He lost on his first 37 rides over fences, but he had a winner last weekend where I was quite impressed because everyone else seemed determined to track wide, but he worked out that the ground perhaps wasn't quite as cut up on the inside as people thought. And he won by half a length from a well-backed JP McManus-owned runner. So, he looks very tidy, actually, from what I've seen. So, yeah, Owen Staples.
Owen Staples. Actually, that's a very well unearthed one, and with the stats to back it up as well. So, yeah, Owen Staples then for Andrew. Dave, your own jockey.
So I've gone for Sean Cleary-Farrell. He first caught my attention. I think it was Just for Love he rode that beat Pagain. So that was 2 Willie Mullins horses. Paul Townend was on Pagain. A horse hasn't fulfilled the potential, but the confidence that this jockey had, I think he was claiming £7 then, rode from the front at Killarney. Pagain sort of travelled on the back of him towards the last couple of fences, I think it was. And then the jockey knew that he had enough under him to kick early enough, and he did, and he pulled clear. So I thought it looked like a very intelligent ride from a young jockey. This summer as well, I think it was Punchestown maybe, he rode 3 winners from 5 rides. I mean, there were 3 odds-on shots for Willie Mullins, but he's got the backing of Willie Mullins. He's clearly got a tremendous amount of ability. One of those winners at Punchestown in June was Spanish Harlem that went on to win the Kerry National after. So I think he's on the right types of horses. I think he can get the best out of horses. Like I say, with that link with Willie Mullins, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think he's the type of jockey that, fingers crossed, all things go well for him, and he will be a big name for years to come.
Yeah, really looking forward to what he can do. And like I said, Willie Mullins is certainly the yard to be with, progressing these younger jockeys, getting the good opportunities as well. There's loads of competition there, but that makes you raise your game at the same time. So yeah, Shawnee Cleary-Farrell there. Now, for the final one, we sign off with a really good one at this part of the show. Biggest flop of the season, Andrew?
Me and my tipping.
Never.
No, but this is a difficult one, isn't it? Because when you're dealing with jumps horses, you don't want to be, sort of willing horses to sort of, fall and not win for that reason. But my notes just say Constitution Hill ? So not knowing that Dave had this one as a shot. But after last season and those falls and that comprehensive defeat, I just think we're going to get the same old story again, aren't we? He's going to be talked up. Nicky's going to be pleased with him. We're going to get sick to death of all the sound bites, the headlines, and then he's just going to turn up and finish third. And then we won't see him again for 3 months, and then he'll get beaten again. So I'm guessing that the price is going to go off in the Fighting Fifth. It's not going to be reflective of his chance. He'll probably be shorter than he should be. With all the glowing reports and the Gallup reports we'll get beforehand. And I think that the problems he's had, that might be it for him now, and he might not live up to the standard we've seen previously.
I say, it's so sad to hear, isn't it? But at the same time, you'd be hard pushed not to agree with that at the same time. For all that we hope that that's not true, it's reality right now, though, isn't it, about Constitution Hill? So for all that Dave's got him as his Shock Festival winner, I guess it ties into that somewhat all the same. But Dave, your biggest flop?
Yeah, so again, just to cover with Andrew saying there about being biggest flop, that's sort of the lines with the Shock Festival winner. Rather than me saying this is the horse I think will win that will shock everyone else, he'd shock me if he did it. I don't expect him to do it. So they do tie in, so thanks for that, Andrew. You saved me a bit there. The biggest flop I think this season is going to be Bambino Fever, though, which is
bumper,
probably a bit more of a conventional one, but also conventional for the fact that champion bumper winners sometimes do disappoint. But she does look really good. She reminds me of Fiona. There's been a few mares that have won the bumpers, isn't there? The late Fiona, she looked like she was going to be a mares novice hurdler. She had one hurdle run and then we sadly lost her. But I think Bambino Fever looks like a really nice prospect, but I'm just concerned with a little bit to do with the breeding. Jukebox juries have been slightly underwhelming at times. Now, almost an oxymoron to say that, because Ilete Thompson has now finished the season and sort of found his feet and done really well. Farclas was a Triumph Hurdle winner, but then I think just disappointed after that. Princess Zoe as well was disappointed as a Mares Novice Hurdle favourite for all that she's shown ability at times. So I wonder if Bambino Fever may have already reached her ceiling. As much as people expect her to make a load of progression, I don't know if she'll progress that fast. Obviously, going for a Mares Novice Hurdle would be easier than going for a Supreme, where she's already favourite for that as well, I think, although they're saying they're going to go down the Mares Hurdle route. But I hope she doesn't. Like Andrew said, you don't want to be winning horses to disappoint. So I'm happy to be wrong in this instance, but I think she's short off the back of what she's done as a bumper horse, and I think she is just a bumper horse. I don't think she'll be any good over obstacles. So yeah, clip that one when she goes and wins everything for the next few seasons.
But that's been the trend, though, hasn't it, for these champion bumper horses who look to have the world at their feet. I know that this year, obviously, our champion bumper winner from the previous year came good in the end. However, wasn't for the main part of the season. And it is just that thing where it's such an ask for them to be able to translate it then over hurdles, when whichever direction they go down, kind of mares only or whichever. So yeah, quite a controversial note to finish on in terms of the biggest flop of the season, but they were the lads' big predictions for the season. Up next, your questions. Right, the most important part of the show, your questions that I'm going to be throwing to Dave and Andrew. Now, the first question comes in on X from Rob Norwood 6. Will Alan King win a big race on a Saturday during the season? Now, I was actually going to alternate this and go to Dave first, but actually, Andrew, it feels only right I should go to you for this one.
Yeah, regular GG readers and listeners will know that I'm not a big fan of Alan King on a Saturday, particularly over hurdles. And no disrespect to him, but to win these, particularly the big handicap, you've got to have something up your sleeve from the handicapper, and he campaigns his horses honestly. So often in the swamp on the inside rail when he shouldn't do. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan of backing the yards horses in the big races, particularly when they're up against plotted up horses from Skelton and an Ireland. So. Probably not would be my answer to that.
There you go.
Thanks for your question, Rob.
I felt that it was targeted for you, and from when we see Rob on Twitter, or X I should call it now, all the time, he's always got a little bit of mischief about him, so no doubt that probably is the case, Dave. But does Alan King win a big race on a Saturday this season?
There's enough Saturdays, isn't there? There's enough races, so I'll just say yes, just to keep it complete.
Yeah, keep it balanced there, yeah. And Rob, you did have another question about Constitution Hill this season, but of course, earlier on in the show, we were talking all about Constitution Hill, so hopefully we've answered your question in that part. But Rob does have another question that he sent in. Who is a smaller yard to follow during the season that may go under the radar with the bookies, Dave?
Oh, I don't know, would be the answer.
Smaller yards.
It's a tricky one with those, because I am a bit of a graded snob, so I tend to look at the smaller yards as being exactly that, a little bit inferior. Graham McPherson, when he was training on his own, I used to think he was criminally underrated. He's in a sort of partnership now, so I'd stick with him. Is it... I can't remember the guy he's in with, that's really bad. Is it?
It begins with K, because I can never pronounce it
properly. His first name begins with a D, I think.
David Kilahina.
Yeah, we'll go for that. So the two of them, Graham McPherson, I've been to the yard as well, it's not just because of that, but he's a very, very good judge, very passionate about the game as well. And he's got a few horses that have sort of, not necessarily surprised, but would have surprised in the market. So where they've asked their horses who are probably underappreciated in the market, I would say that Graham McPherson's always got a horse that's better than the chance the bookies give it.
There you go. So there's your, the smaller yard then to be, not to be underestimating, but the bookies may well do. Andrew, your idea of that?
Yeah, tricky one. I mean, Dylan Cunha doesn't have many jumpers. He's based in Newmarket, but he's done well on the flat this season with some, sort of fairly modest horses. So I think when he does have one over hurdles or fences, they could surprise. Favourable mention to Chester Williams, who won with his first two runners.
Yes, yeah, didn't
and he's I've known him for many years, and he's a deep thinker about the game, so he could be one to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, certainly. It was New Service, wasn't it? Those first two winners. Was it
yes,
Chester Williams?
Right. Yeah, he beat his mum's horse, Auto Celtic, into second.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, the Williams horse is coming to the fore there. Yes, so Chester is definitely a big thinker about the game. Next question comes in from @DavyBananas1735 on YouTube. Here, great name. You're always going to get a shout out if you've got a name like that. What reason, other than tradition, is there to oppose Cheltenham moving forward one day to include the Saturday? I'd move it Thursday to Sunday, and I would also move all racing festivals to include both Saturday and Sunday. The weekend is when we can get new eyes on the sport. Andrew, your thoughts on Davy Banana's question/statement?
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about this recently. There's various arguments for keeping it to sort of, Tuesday to Friday. That on Friday it's the big sporting event. It doesn't have to compete for airtime and newspaper coverage with the Six Nations rugby and with football. And of course, there's will it affect the crowd and the coverage of the Midlands National as well? Because the ITV televised card on a Saturday is the Midlands National from Uttoxeter, and of course that will go by the wayside with Cheltenham. That could affect betting turnover on that sport. I mean, one of my local pubs, they have a big sort of Gold Cup day, and a lot of people I know take the day off work. They start off having breakfast about sort of 8 o'clock in the morning in the Wetherspoons, go on the beer all day and sit in the pub punting. And so there's a lot of turnover is going to be affected. I think if that goes by the wayside. So I would keep it as the way it is. But then I'm an old git, and I say that about most things.
No, to be fair, you said other than tradition. You've given other reasons other than tradition, so that means that you're not just thinking of it solely from that point of view. Dave, what would you like to see?
Yeah, I've never thought about it from a traditional perspective, to be fair. So even when you first asked that question, it made me think of it slightly differently. But just in the modern day that we're in, as Andrew touches on, the Gold Cup day being on Friday, it's the start of the weekend. People get to take a long weekend, get to celebrate it into the weekend. If you have a real good Cheltenham week, you've got time to recover by Monday. If they moved it to a Thursday to Sunday, you couldn't really go to town on the Gold Cup day because people would have to take the Monday off of work, and then it probably rolls into 2 weeks. And the Benidorm lovers that like going over there, their flight prices would go up if it was Thursday to Sunday, so they wouldn't be able to go. They'd have to come to Cheltenham. So it might increase the crowds, but there probably is, there are reasons other than tradition to keep it as it is. I'm happy with the way that it is. Like Andrew said, I'll go there just because of the days that it's on. But I think probably logistically ending it on a weekend would mean that it would cost the industry and outside of that money. So I don't think they'll ever move it to Sunday. I personally hope they don't move it to Saturday either. I like things the way they are.
Yeah, I think we all do, really, don't we? I mean, not that I'm sort of one of these really sort of staunch advocates for it to definitely stay exactly as it is, definitely as 4 days, but whether or not it includes a Saturday or not, I'm not too bothered, to be honest.
If you want to be really traditional, we'll go back to Tuesday to Thursday.
yeah, exactly. Bring back the 3 days. That's a proper traditional argument to make. Now, Tom Leach has a question on YouTube. Is Stateman a good bet at 7-1 for the champion hurdle? It seems to me he should be close to favourite. The others have to get to Stateman's level, in my view. Now, Andrew, we've already got your thoughts on Stateman, but do you just want to summarise that?
Yeah, just saying that we know he's going to be aimed at the race, and we know he's a sound horse, and you can imagine him being 7-2 or 4-1 on the day, even shorter if he goes there on the back of a win at the Dublin Racing Festival. So yeah, backing him each way now is one of the few anti-post bets I'd recommend at this stage.
Yes, with anti-post betting being what it is nowadays, Stateman at 7-1 doesn't seem a bad way to go. We haven't got your thoughts on him just yet.
No, I think I'm sort of lukewarm on the price about him, to be honest, because I can't see him being short for a champion hurdle, just for the fact that people like to oppose Stateman. I think some people think him as sort of an ordinary horse, even though Andrew touched on his strike rate, the amount of grade ones. I know, and that's the thing. I just think the way that it is, like Lossiemouth could be going to a champion hurdle. I think that's where there could be some money going towards it. We don't see it, but there could be a revival from Constitution Hill, and then there's new horses like your William Moneys that could come in and go and pick pieces up. So I wouldn't be fussed if I didn't back him at 7-1. He's probably the type of horse you'd want to get in the book maybe at some point, or you can see him running a big race. But yeah, I'm not rushing to back him at 7-1 now. He's a sort of a maturing horse. For all that he's still young for where he's been, it doesn't tempt me in.
Oh, question that divided opinion then. So thanks for that one, Tom Leach. Now, at Johnny Boy Get On 6542 on YouTube.
I wonder if that's his real name.
I'm sure he was christened that. I'm sure he definitely was. Do let us know. How do we get more competitive national hunt racing? It used to go to Exeter a few years back, but field sizes are so small now that there is no incentive to go for Johnny Boy Get On, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite simply, there's just too much racing. I did some work on this a few years ago, looking at the field sizes in Ireland and the field sizes in the UK, and to do with competitive racing. There's just too many opportunities for people to dodge each other over here. It's less to do with the field sizes, but we've seen so many maiden hurdles in Ireland where the Neptune or Ballymore or whatever, the Jack Richards, whichever the novice it is for the 2.5 mile at Cheltenham, and the Supreme winner they would actually clash against each other in an ordinary 2-mile maiden hurdle over there, you'd never see, well, you probably wouldn't see a British winner of either races anyway, but you would never see them going up against each other. No. And I don't think they ever learn to be their true best, because you want to surround yourself with like-minded people, and when they're running these horses against dross, they're never going to achieve their potential. So to get better horses in this side of the sea, you need to have better quality races, and the only way to do that is to reduce the amount they're in there, but I don't see that's going to happen.
No, and it is, isn't it, Andrew? That's the thing that we've all been arguing for. Don't know how on earth we're ever going to change that. It's not for us. It's above all of our pay grades to be able to change the amount of racing. But how do you think we get more competitive national hunt
drastic
racing?
Cut to the fixture list, lob 10% off it, and then maybe do another 10% the next season.
Yes.
And or we on Monday, everybody who wants to run on Saturday declares their horse and what type of race they want. Then we sit down with a pen and paper, design some races that we then put on that weekend. And we do it that way.
And they've got no excuses not to run then either. No excuses not to run, and we've got the pool size to
make it more like point to points, where you don't know who's going to run in the Open until they turn up on the day.
Yeah, exactly. To be fair, the amount of scrolls you have to do in your point-to-point race card of non-runners or horses that are multiple entered and everything else. But yeah, something drastic needs to be done though, doesn't it? Or else we're just going to keep going one way. So yeah, there you go. Then hopefully that's answered your question. Not that it's answered the question of how on earth racing moves forward. Johnny Boy, get on. Say your name again. Now our final question comes in from Dave K 9331 on YouTube. What football teams do Andrew Mount, Dave Young and Matty Sutcliffe support? Andrew, who do you support?
Well, I hope 9331's not your PIN number, Dave. So you just give
it might be Dave Kilahina for all we know as well. Good, yeah, so who knows?
Well, I'm a Reading fan, so
are you?
I started life when I first got into football as an Everton fan, because my brother supported Liverpool, so I wanted to be like him and support Liverpool. He said, you can't, you have to support Everton because they're the closest club geographically. He had a big vocabulary for a 9-year-old. And so bizarrely, when Everton were terrible in the late 70s, I was a fan of them. And then when I was old enough to go to football on my own, me and an Arsenal supporting mate decided to go and watch Reading, who were the nearest league club to where we lived in Maidenhead in Berkshire. So for about 5 years, I became a sort of Reading fan. Every home game, some away games, and sort of lived and breathed it. And when we weren't at home and we couldn't afford to go to the away game, we'd be sitting there with teletext at one of our houses watching the scores updates.
How did I never know Loftus Road?
No, that's QPR.
QPR, sorry, apologies. What's Reading?
It was Elm Park back in the day, before the Majeski Stadium.
That's it, now Majeski.
It's no longer there.
Yes, he made lots of trips down to there then. I did not know that. I just assumed you were Leicester City, to be honest. That was just, me putting 2 and 2 together.
Well, I'm tempted to go to Harbour Town now, Market Harbour.
Yes,
they're attracting a lot of support and doing well. So I can walk there and have a beer and walk back.
There you go. Great alternative to a day of racing. Not that you ever get that. Dave, who do you support?
Southampton. I used to live in Southampton. I had a season ticket when I was 3, and then me and my dad used to go home and away till I was about 16, I think.
Yes.
And then just adult life starts to creep in, and mostly horse racing.
Yeah.
So switched sort of hobbies from that. I'm not an avid follower of the football now, but I used to be mad into it. And I got to watch Matt Letizia play every week as well. So now he's not playing. It's not as much fun. So Southampton are still there though.
Yeah, I'd say it wouldn't be much fun last season, but going well again this season though. Do you know who Matty Sutcliffe supports?
I think he's United.
I support the 2025-2026 Premier League champions, Manchester United.
Of course he is. Oh, yes, yeah. That's why we try not to
Makes
associate
sense, lives in
all
York.
Yeah. Doesn't it make perfect sense? And of course, you know my team. I mean, even my phone cover is showing it right now, completely accidentally. But Andrew is also going with the claret and blue theme, so Aston Villa all the way. So hopefully that has answered your question, Dave. But thank you so much to all of you for your questions. And that pretty much wraps up the National Hunt Preview Show. So lads, thank you so much once again for your time. It's been great to be back in person again. So hopefully we'll get to do more of these, but we get to do more of these because of all of your support, all of your likes, subscribes, your comments, everything else. We really do thank you, because that is exactly why we get to be here and we get to grow bigger and better year on year. So do make sure to let us know a few more comments, your horses to follow, what you're looking forward to this season. Also a review as well. Hopefully it's a positive one. But for now though, from the three of us, that is everything. Enjoy the National Hunt season.